Mass Effect is a game I always wanted to love, and I always wanted to play through the series just because I knew it was a good game, and I knew it was a good series, a very important series, one that people have talked about for years now and accredited as being, some of the greatest games of all time, especially Mass Effect 2. People just give that game near perfect ratings and just say, it's a game everybody has to play. But I never made it past the first game for so many years. For whatever reason, I would play through several hours and then I would just lose interest, or I would take a break or something. And then by the time I came back to it, I forgot what was going on. I forgot what I was doing. And so I would start over, and then I'd eventually give it up again and repeat the cycle. But now with all the hype over the legendary remastered collection, I decided, you know what, it's time. I'm gonna hop on this hype train. I'm gonna finally experience this series from start to finish. I'm gonna make my way through Mass Effect 1 so that I can check out Mass Effect 2 and hope I enjoy it more than the first one. You know what, that was all wrong. That was all wrong, because I became fully invested in this series from the first game. I think it must have just been a bad time in my life for gaming when I first, when I was trying to play this game before. And I will admit, it's not a perfect game. There are some, clunky aspects, things that could have been done better. And for the most part, these have been ironed out in the new Legendary Edition. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I actually didn't pick up the Legendary Edition. I just decided to play through these because I already have them. And you know what? They still play and look really, really good. I mean, yes, they have aged, but they've aged very gracefully. There are some glitchy parts, there are some graphical anomalies here and there. Quite a few bugs actually throughout the series. I had invisible people, I had quest events not triggering when they were supposed to, so I'd have to restart missions and, so that the proper events could trigger and I could progress. Annoying little things like that. There was one side mission where I glitched out of the map repeatedly in the same spot. I had to restart that mission 4 or 5 times before I could finally get through. But for what it's worth, these are still amazing games. Whether you play the old ones here or if you play the new remastered version, I sincerely believe that everybody should play this series. So I was wrong. I thought, maybe it just wasn't for me. Maybe the first game wasn't that good. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm glad I went back. And I'm glad I didn't just skip the first game like a few people told me to do, because no, you have to play the entire series. And back then, the first game was only on Xbox 360 and later PC, but for that reason, I think a lot of people did start with Part 2 or Part 3. Man, they're missing out. They really missed out, because so much of the story is set up in the first game, and the decisions that you make in the first game will carry on forward all the way through 2 and 3. It's brilliant. Your decisions will haunt you for the whole series. Yes, there's some tough decisions, and that's one of the things that makes this series so beautiful, actually. Really tough decisions. Sometimes there are just no good, clear way to go, and you gotta make tough calls. And you know what? That kind of tells you a lot about life. That kind of gives you a life lesson right there. I was thinking about a lot of life lessons while I was playing this thing. It was really interesting, but yeah, I'm still a little traumatized by some of the events that I let take place in the games. I could have reverted to an earlier save state, but you know what? Life lessons, guys. There are no do-overs in life. I was just like, okay, I made the decision. I'm gonna suffer the consequences for the rest of this thing, and it all worked out okay. Brilliant experience altogether. Now, what's wrong with the first game? Absolutely nothing, to be honest. But I mean, okay, to be fair, the combat is a little clunky. The first game feels like an RPG first and a third-person shooter second, whereas the second and third games, they feel a lot more like third-person shooters that are also RPGs. If you know what I'm saying, they really tightened up the combat for the second and third games, and put a lot more emphasis on that combat, whereas the first game was a lot more about exploration. And speaking of exploration, you would go explore different planets, and there were these driving segments that apparently people hated. The driving mechanics feel really awkward. It didn't control very well, and they did kind of fix that a little bit for the Legendary Edition. They also tightened up the combat in the Legendary Edition as well to make it feel more like the second and third games. It took me probably several hours to really allow myself to get into the nuances of the combat and kind of the strategies, issuing orders to my teammates and making the most of my equipment, my loadouts and squad mates' abilities and everything like that. Once I gave that a little bit of time, I could really appreciate it for what it was. And in some ways I got so used to the first game, the mechanics and the character roster, that by the time I went on to the second game, I was like, wait, hold up, what is this? Where are my crewmates? Where are my beloved characters? You get to see most of them down the road, but not immediately. And some of your progress, I mean, your character abilities are not going to transfer over to the next game. Your choices and the events that happen in the story will carry on. But there's that, and there's suddenly the weapons need ammo in the second game. First game, what I really appreciated is that you don't need any ammo. These are high-tech futuristic weapons. They just kind of overheat after a while, so you have to kind of plan your shots and not overdo it. Just give it a few seconds to cool down so that your weapons don't overheat, but there's no need for extra ammo. Once you get to Mass Effect 2, it's like, oh, we use new state-of-the-art weapons with these ammo clips. I'm like, wait, that sounds like a downgrade to me. So suddenly you're running out of ammo and you always got to be on the lookout for more ammo. That felt like a little bit of a downgrade, but overall, yeah, the combat was much more tight and there was much more of a focus on that aspect of the game, the shooting and whatnot, but less of an emphasis on exploring, I could say. And they did away with all the driving segments altogether, implemented a bunch of new things, and then the third game kind of took what the second game did for the most part, still tweaked things even more, but it felt like a much more cohesive move from 2 to 3, whereas the first game feels just a little bit more removed from the rest. But definitely you want to play through these games 1 through 3, and yeah, it's just amazing the emotional impact, how invested I got in these characters and this story throughout this trilogy. Amazing. I was holding back tears at times, I was frustrated at times, I was shocked at times, and I'm still dealing with the trauma of losing some of my people. I'm not going to spoil anything for those of you who haven't played this game yet. But man, this is an incredible series. Like I say, whether you play the old ones or the new ones, just make sure you play these games somehow before you die. Leave it to BioWare. I don't know, like I say, I think over the years I picked up the game at a bad time where I just couldn't focus on it. I couldn't give it the time. I'm glad I finally got to experience this trilogy, and that many more people are either for the first time or they're revisiting it, in this new enhanced version. But definitely a lot more people are going to be able to experience this trilogy from start to finish, and that makes me really happy. I'm looking forward to whatever new BioWare RPGs might come out. KOTOR 3, please. That's the thing, man, too. I loved Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Those were some of my favorite RPGs from the generation before the Mass Effect games came out. And I don't know, Mass Effect, I would say, is even better than those games, although those games have a very special place in my heart. So I don't know why I couldn't get into this game at first, or the second or possibly third times I picked it up, but man, I am a fan. I am a fan today. So anyways, that's just my take on the Mass Effect trilogy. I'd love to hear yours, and yeah, go have some fun. Thanks for watching today. I'll see you next time.